Everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to come and speak. I can see some familiar names and faces. So my colleague Martin and I have been working with Alan on some of his regional forums for town and community councils. So this is a different presentation than the one you might have already heard, although there will be some familiar discussion points. But as Angela said, I am one of the assistant directors at Play Wales, and my work involves policy for play, support for play, and doing my best to be a strong advocate for play wherever children are. If you haven't heard of Play Wales, we are the national charity for children's play, and promote the right to play through raising awareness and promoting good practice and providing advice and guidance across anybody who has a responsibility or an interest in children's play, which is probably just about everybody. And we work towards a future where play is valued for the important, crucial role it has in a healthy and happy childhood. So just thinking back a little bit in terms of your play memory. I'm not going to ask anybody to share this, only because I'm mindful of time, and this is something, when we go down memory lane, we can spend a long time talking about kind of where we played and how it made us feel. But if you can just hold on to a play memory, kind of where you played when you were younger, what you got up to, who you were with, as we have this discussion about play generally, that's a reasonably good starting point. What we tend to find when we have those opportunities to discuss our opportunities to play, for those of us who grew up in previous generations, which is me, there tend to be some common features that come out, some common feedback that come out from people, and that is that children played intragenerationally, if you like. They played with, we played with children of different ages. It was not unusual for 5-year-olds to be playing alongside 9-year-olds on a daily basis. So we had a culture of play in our childhood. We learned from one another. I learned to run because somebody was chasing me. I learned to catch because somebody was throwing something at me, not to me. And I think that will resonate with a lot of people, those sorts of and learning skills. Nobody sat me down to teach me how to play tag or run knock knock ginger or any of those other things that we just watched those. We were resourceful. We used what was to hand to play, blue rope, tarp. Some of you will remember go-karts. And so therefore, because we were resourceful, we could create our own provision. And we played in a range of places. When we have these memories, depending on what sort of area we grew up in, some of us will remember streets, streams, hills, tumps, mountains, etc. And one of the key things that comes out of memories for common play patterns is that we were afforded a lot of freedom. We had time to play. Our days were not filled with lots of structured activities. So those are just kind of to hold on to what we did as children and what the features were. Now, in terms of the evidence around children's play, we have commissioned recently a intense literature review into looking at all of the evidence around children's play. And when you think back to your memories, a lot of this evidence will resonate with you, I'm sure. The evidence reminds us that playing supports children to socialize. When they're interacting with one another, they're developing friendships and attachments, dealing with conflict. So that could be conflict with one another, conflict with neighbors, conflict with space. And they learn respect and tolerance by playing alongside one another. We know how crucial playing is for good health and well-being. When children are playing, they are generally being active or at least less sedentary. And so that helps them, obviously, with all of their physical development, but emotionally as well, and that therefore contributing to that happiness. Playing supports babies, toddlers, children, and teenagers. And I think it's important to remember that when we're talking about children's play, we are talking right across the age range from children who may be very little and jumping in puddles or having tummy time, right up to the children who are old enough to make their own way to school, etc. Playing in neighborhoods supports children to be part of them. They make connections. It's how we learn about the world around us and develop a sense of identity and belonging to that from a spatial perspective. It's well established how, to what extent playing supports learning and development. So that's in terms of the skills such as problem solving and critical thinking. But the evidence also reminds us that play has a role in building the structures of the brain. So building the structures of the brain contribute to that skill development. And all of that comes together nicely to contribute to resilience. Playing boosts children's emotion regulation. It gives them confidence, creativity, immediate problem solving skills, and perseverance. So they have an immediate sense of being well when they're playing. It may be, and when we think back to our memories, it wasn't so much fun when I fell down and grazed myself or when I had conflict with somebody. But that just gave us some bounce back ability. We all have everyday stress and challenges. So playing supports that back ability, if you like, through those everyday stresses. But Angela has alluded to the impact that poverty of experience has on children, or creating a sense of uncertainty. So for children that are facing particular challenges and stresses, playing is really, really important and always has been. So I'm going to start. Many of you will be aware of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, and the right to play is actually enshrined in that UN convention. It is the most signed up to human rights treaty in the world. And when the committee that looks after that convention feels that one of the rights isn't well understood, it issues guidance around that. So we have guidance around Article 31 rights. So that's around play and recreation. And also cultural life and the arts. So they're all encapsulated within Article 31. The focus of today's discussion is on play. And we have further guidance called General Comment 17, which raises the accountability and importance of the right to play. Now, that general comment gives us some really nice definitions, and the definition for play describes play as a behavior. So it's really important that we see it as a behavior that has some characteristics of fun, challenge, flexibility, non-productivity. That will probably resonate with your play memories. When you were playing, you didn't set out to looking for an award or a badge or a trophy. We know children love those, and they're an important part of childhood and sense of achievement. But when we went out to play, that wasn't our own goal. That non-productivity is really, really important aspect. The general comment situates play as having an essential component to all the developmental aspects that I already described in the evidence slide previously. But more importantly, I think, is that the general comment reminds us that play is really, really important for children in the here and now, right? It's vital for children to get a sense of having a good childhood. Children know the benefits that playing brings them, but that's not what drives them to play. They don't hang upside down when they're 3 so that they can sit still in a classroom. That helps them ultimately, but that's not what drives them. What drives them is whatever they are imagining that they're doing when they're hanging upside down. When it was me, it was being my sister and I played hairdressers, but that's my play memory and that's it. So one of the other things the general comment does is it suggests to, or strongly encourages, to be honest, governments to introduce legislation around children's play. And so a bit of context, Wales became the first country to legislate for play. Welsh Government became the first government internationally to legislate through play in 2010 through its Children and Families Measure, and produced and then recently refreshed its statutory guidance to local authorities around play sufficiency. So Through the place efficiency duties, Welsh Government encourages, placed a duty on local councils, local authority councils, to make a commitment to work across their policies and departments and with partners organisations to consider how they can work together to ensure that children have enough space, enough time, and are allowed to play. So they recognise that the conditions for children to make the most of their opportunities to play, they need enough time, so it's in a temporal domain, they need good enough space within a spatial domain, and they need to be allowed to play. And relevant partnerships within the guidance are likely to include community and town councils. And I dare say, I'm sure many of you are involved in those local authority place efficiency assessments to one extent or another. I certainly hope you are. The most current place efficiency assessments were submitted to Welsh Government in June of 2025. Local authorities undertake a thorough, full assessment of opportunities to play in their area, set out on a template. They produce an executive summary, which must ultimately be published on a local authority website. They produce an annual action plan, and then annual progress reports on that action plan in that time in between the triennial place efficiency assessment. So they are submitted every 3 years. And they assess across 9 matters, which I won't go into too much depth in at the moment, at all today, because I think for today's discussion, the most crucial or important matters that local authorities assess are population. So that's where they understand where their pockets of deprivation or play deprivation might be. And there is also a matter looking at charges for play provision. So the Children and Families Wales measure, which I mentioned a few slides earlier, is, you may recall, is Wales legislation around anti-poverty. So it sets play within its anti-poverty legislation, recognizing that play is a universal offer and that children can have play deprivation regardless of where they live and what their backgrounds are. So there are 9 matters, so very thorough place efficiency assessment, but looking at population and then the charges for play provision. And that may be charges to children, to families, or to providers. That local authorities need to take account of that. So through the place efficiency assessments, Play Wales reviews the 22 local authority place efficiency assessments. So you can probably get a view of what I was doing over the summer. And we've have just recently published our analysis of the 22 local authority place efficiency assessments through a document called the State of Play 2025, which is readily available on the Play Wales website. And looking across those matters and the population theme of the place efficiency assessments, in which matters A, population, and matter E, charges of play provision, are considered, we've identified some key learning points. The cost of living crisis is impacting on the ability to access some opportunity, particularly those with a charge attached to them or where there is equipment required to take part. That children living in more deprived communities often face multi-barriers to play. So this could be limited local provision of space, restrictions on their freedom to play out, or concerns for community safety. The children in rural areas face some distinct challenges as well. So, and for those of you who represent rural councils will be well aware of the distances to formal facilities and opportunities to play, the limited availability of designated spaces for play within smaller settlements, and a higher dependence on informal outdoor environments for play, which we know sound very idyllic, but we also know that that will bring with it some issues around exposure to faster roads, lack of pavements, and limited public transport. And for all children, living in a cost of living crisis creates uncertainty for children, impacting on their well-being. So even if children are maybe seen to me more affluent, children are reporting they are generally one of the more compassionate bits of our species, and the fact that other children are facing poverty and crisis through austerity measures and cost of living creates uncertainty for children. And during times of and immediately following uncertainty, the evidence reminds us that playing helps children to gain a feeling of joy and normality. During the cost of living crisis, for some children there will be a sense of loss. They may have lost their access to an opportunity. They may feel isolated from friends. Playing helps children to overcome that emotional pain and regain control over their lives. It helps children to make meaning of what's happening to them and to experience fun and enjoyment, and offers children an opportunity to explore their own creativity. So in terms of what our experts say, when local authorities asked children about their opportunities to play as part of those statutory play sufficiency assessments through some survey work, and we've analysed data from just under 8,000 children from 16 of the 22 local authorities that provided data to us. And children say that when they have the opportunities to play, playing outside is still their favourite opportunity to play. However, the most commonly reported outdoor place where they play is a garden or their friend's back garden. So that we know that a lot of children, perhaps living in more impoverished areas, may not have access to a private garden. So Play Wales wants to see children being more present in their neighbourhoods, being, in front of houses and so we implore people to look at the community assets around and support ways to help children make the most of those. When we've asked children through that survey about what's good about their places to play, they come back with some very, very simple responses. They like making dens and trees and playing with friends. So children in 2025 still like doing some of the things that you may remember from your own childhood. They talk about when they live in streets and neighborhoods with lots of children, they can go out with one another and their parents can keep an eye on them. And I remember that from my childhood, knowing that I was being watched even when I felt a sense of freedom. Children report walking around exploring and not getting into trouble. We haven't justified that comment, but I'll take them on their word. And this very, very strong comment that one child has reported that what's good about their favorite place to play is having places to jump and move, and that helps them with their ADHD. So really, really strong comment from a child to say, if you give me opportunities to play, I'm pretty good at being well. I can have 30 minutes, 30 seconds, whatever, of being well. If I have those opportunities, take them away from me and I will struggle. So I'm just going to share with you a few things that I know that play and community and town councils are already doing across Wales. So that just to kind of spark some ideas. They are through Cardiff actually I know there's only a few town and community councils there, but on some of the land that they are responsible for, they've worked with the local authority to install right to play signage and that's just open space that children can play on. There's no designated equipment there. So it's just reminding people in that area that it's okay to play here. When people are new to a community, if they haven't grown up there and there's a bit of open space, they never really know if children are allowed there, who they're going to upset. So it's just a really subtle but important message that children can play there. And you can see that we've got indicators of children playing through hats and scooters and what have you. Many town and community councils engage with their local authority play teams to support play schemes, staffed play provision. So that may be either by making buildings or spaces available for play teams to visit, or by directly funding play teams. And that might be in the school holidays or in after school or weekend provision. Many councils, so there is a scheme known as Buy a Day of Play, where town and community councils kind of just bought in a local play team for a particular event or a play day. Many town and community councils do something on Play Day. So it's a UK National Day of Play on the first Wednesday of every August. And that might be hosting events in a town and community council, or encouraging local residents to attend a larger event that may be going on in the area. And we have some examples of where town and community councils have worked, again, with a local play team to house storage containers, and then working with local residents to have some stuff for play. So you'll see in this image, there's just things that we may remember playing with, den making stuff, non-prescriptive items for play. There'll be a few balls and there'll be some hula hoops, some skipping ropes. Excuse me. But this is in one area where the local play team came in and supported residents to, it's a locked container, and supported residents to make use of that. And in time, volunteers came forward to kind of, if you like, to get the stuff out and put it back and look after it and just enable it in a public space in a town and community council. And there's more. We have town and community councils in a couple of local authorities in Wales that support residents through the local authority to temporarily close non-heavily trafficked roads for play. It's called play streets, which run for maybe once a month for a couple of hours a day through local authority permission. But this enables children, particularly in built-up areas, to get right outside their houses and play. There are town and community councils who have advocated for schools to think about how they make their grounds available for play when the school day ends. And we know that can be very, very important in some of our more, both equally in rural and urban areas, in areas where children don't have private gardens, having access to a space where parents think is a safe place to play, a sanctioned place to play, really supports children to realize their right to play. And that final slide is an example. It's a larger example of the play box. It's called a play shack. And there are those developing across Wales where it'll be a local authority initiative, but town and community councils can get involved either perhaps through some low-level funding to have this store of, these are called loose parts, things that children can play with in their local community. So it can enhance places where there isn't designated play areas. You'll know I haven't talked about play areas, designated play areas, swings and slides in this presentation, because I've come today with an assumption that many of us understand that as an initial and very important opportunity to play. And it's something that many of our town and community councils, alongside play schemes, are well acquainted with. But I wanted to bring some other examples, which are lower cost in a lot of ways of supporting children to play. So we have a range of resources from Play Wales, which might help in some of the things that we've talked about today. There are some toolkits around play spaces. These are all bilingually available on the Play Wales, Credit Cymru websites. Some toolkits around play spaces, toolkits around play streets, and a toolkit for schools to consider making their grounds available for play. We've got information sheets, and we've got one particularly aimed at you. It's called a Focus on Play briefing for town and community councils. We have an information sheet around making community events playful. So if you're having a family fun day or some sort of event, there's some nice ideas there on how you can bring some low-cost ideas for play in. We've got some top tips for fundraising and top tips for celebrating Play Day, which I mentioned already. We've got some guides around play work provision. I know some town and community councils will actually organise their own play schemes. So we've got some guides around that, and we also have an endorsed course to support people who are working or volunteering in staff play provision. And we have a Playful Childhoods website, which is aimed at parents, caregivers, and communities, and it gives information about play ideas, and then ideas to play wider in communities and neighborhood. That's the Playful Childhoods website. To promote play locally, there are some dates for your diary. There is now a UN Day of Play, which is a set day. It's the 11th of June every year. And National Play Day, which is the UK Day for Play, is on the 5th of August this year. So we've got an International Day of Play. It falls on a school day. If you're a school governor, ask your schools what they're doing for International Day of Play. I know many of you will have lots and lots of hats. And if you're interested in highlighting play, and it doesn't have to be an event. If you have social media pages, you may just want to share information about play. Just wanted to end with reminding ourselves that you, as Angela has already said, you are crucial in supporting children at local level. You can ensure that play needs are considered in local plans. We can connect you with your local authority play development team or similar. Not every local authority has a team, but there will be somebody with responsibility for play. We can connect you with them and other and third sector play organisations. You can organise an event. You can work with the local school community to consider that as a community asset. You can advocate for play wherever possible when talking to residents in meetings, when making decisions. And a great way to start advocating for play is getting people to remember their own memories of play. It really helps people to remember how important it is. And if you follow our social media pages, it's an easy click to share that information with your social media constituency. All of the information is available on those websites, Play Wales Choir Cymru and the Playful Childhoods. I'm very happy to be contacted following this event. And I thought I would just leave with a little bit of an image of what one of our favourite cartoons from our cartoonists, and kind of what we think a play-friendly community looks like. Children having the opportunities and being supported to make the most of their own neighbourhoods for play. It's very cost effective and immediately supports their well-being.